Welcome to Cross-Examination with Jahan Kalantar, the podcast where we examine critically concepts in the law, ideas in the law, and things that have to do with how we understand the world around us. I am very excited to bring my first special guest, Chen. Wenjun Chen, as he's known formally, my senior associate at Executive Law Group and the SRC Legal Service. Jim's been working with me for over a year, and today we're going to talk about the concept of how you go from being a law student one day to becoming a lawyer the next. How does that hit? How does it hit differently? How does it feel? But before we even start, Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself. Why don't you tell them how we met and sort of what your journey to becoming a lawyer has been?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. Let me say that you're so big on TikTok, and then it's just so unreal to participate in that now being real in action that I'm seeing you right in front of my face. Back to the question. From law student being a lawyer, well, I guess the most part that hits you. Really, it's that from that moment that you transit from purely academic into the reality. That means that there's no longer just a story that you read from case law, and there's no longer just something that you can make fun about. It's people's life.
Yeah.
It's real.
So, when did you were in law school when?
I was in law school about 5 years ago.
Yep.
This year it's my first 12 month of practice. It's been a quick 5 years.
So in this 1 year of practice, and I can, we've worked together. What have you found what has been the areas you've worked in?
Well, my area sort of mainly focus on the criminal litigation side, which is something that I guess most of the people, can sort of fantasize from watching this, TVs and movies. Not the one in Suit though, like the one.
Suit. This podcast is going to attack the show Suits every episode. Like that is going to be something that we aim to do. Sorry, Jimbo, I cut you off.
Yeah. Well, sorry, back to your question again.
So what areas have you practiced in? I know you've done some crime. What else?
I have, sort of jump in a bit for the civil litigation, which is, the one that you normally just, help people to solve the dispute, sort of in between two private parties. This is, I always say that this is, sort of a big part of every lawyer's life.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that it is very, very difficult areas of law. All areas difficult.
Yeah, that's right. I think every area's got it. I mean, I always say that we criminal lawyers are real lawyers, and we kind of tease our counterparts who, but the reality is they do stuff that's just as complicated, much more complicated, but just different. So I want to really, because the reality is I look back on my career 10 years ago when I started, and I just can't remember what it feels like. It really is, it's like a different person lived it. So I've forgotten, I know what it's like to be stressed. I know what it's like to be worried, but I don't know that feeling of when you start. So why don't you share with people what it was like in your first 2-3 months?
Right, that's I can't say, but that's a bright and a sort of a dark memory, that the 3 months in my life. I guess all law students were probably aware that you have to do your PLT for some time before you can be admitted as a lawyer. I guess from a very beginning, when you just fresh out of law school, you may expect yourself to be in court, shined, speaking in big words, telling people off, putting it in a nice way, win argument. Well, let me draw you back to the reality. It is not. Okay, it is not. The reality is, before you can say a thing, before any court, that's a lot you have to do. One thing that I say that, one thing that I learned, the first thing that I remember coming to you tell me to make great friends with the printer. Printer, it's not a person, obviously, it's a printer. So, yes, you have to spend so much time just to learn the fundamental and this is so different. It's not what you can, I guess, expect from law books. It's not glamorous. It's not something that you will see that what you can see from a high court decision, that you're making this argument, beautiful argument. It's you that actually go to the law firm, take half an hour commute, getting extremely stressed, don't know what's going to come to you on the day, sit in the office, look at what are the files on your desk, go to work, print the files, stable, put them in order, get ready to make mistake, get ready to fix the mistake.
You know, it's so funny you say that. I'm lucky I have, team members like you to help me out. I did filing too. I remember my first 6 months, I did so much filing. I was best friends with the printer. I was printing things and scanning them and then stapling them. But I think what it's really important to understand is there has to serve a deeper purpose, right? If you're just printing for the sake of printing, that's not the goal. Hopefully you're reading what you're printing. You're taking things in, you're asking questions, and you're getting involved in the cases. And, I think during the PLT, a lot of it is quasi-clerical, administrative type work mixed in with some legal stuff, but it's really a lot of both. It's really a lot of file management with a little bit of legal practice. And then one day you're a full-fledged lawyer, you're admitted, you've got your practicing certificate, and you're being sent to cases. So where did you start? What was the first couple of things you did?
Well, of course, to learn the files. What I mean by that is, as you go through all this file that has been finalized, so you get to see what a file is really involved. For example, whether there's any material that is so particular or so important for a lawyer to consider that what the case strategy would be. For example, right, in the standard criminal proceeding, that you will always see a fact sheet, which is, in a normal way to understand that it's what the story will be presented by the police, right? And of course, our job is to find out and also to take instruction from clients to understand that what are the best way to deal with the fact. It's not necessarily that the police sometimes what they say in the fact sheet is true. It could be sometime. It could be just. Well, I'm not making any allegation or making any complaints here, but it just sometimes fact is fact, right? Sometimes even the police don't get to see the full image, but on a reason, for example, for protection that they have to make, for someone who has been allegedly becoming the victim in the matter, that they have to do what they have to do. This is for general deterrence, which I 100% agree, and I support that. It's because there's nothing more important than make sure that everyone in this society should enjoy a safe environment, right? This is, I guess this also the main purpose that why we're doing law. Well, other than being the defense lawyer, that we're also a member of the society. So, it's a pretty important duty.
It's how do you balance that that obligation to keep society safe while also, for me, I have a healthy degree of skepticism of authority, which I don't know if I've poisoned your mind with yet, but I think, I think we've had the chat many, many times. If you had $1,000 in your case, you'd spend $990 checking to make sure everything that was done properly, right? There's so many procedural steps that need to be followed, which often aren't, and there's always like little bits and pieces that you need to stay on top of. So from that, I guess, how do you balance that need to, we need to keep people safe, but also, hey, sometimes decision makers are not doing their job correctly, or they arrive at a scene, they come to a story that's not truth?
Well, first of all, that I would have to say that sometimes, not most of the time, sometimes the world isn't just as fair as what we can imagine. Sometimes dealing it with a way that you don't think it's the best, as in, for example, as in what I say, as in it doesn't achieve your desired goal, but it doesn't mean that it's not a sensible or realistic way to deal with some matter. Imagine that I understand that sometimes legal proceeding could be quite frustrated, but sometimes, I guess, even just me, imagine that I'm in a legal proceeding. Sometimes it may be the best way to deal with certain matter. It's for me to understand the reality and sometimes to choose, I guess, alternative to deal with it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm inclined to agree with you. I think a lot of it is, perception and reality. How do you find dealing with actual people instead of characters written on a page? That was the big one for me.
Wow. Let me see. I have to put this, before the conversation, before I say anything. It's I'm a soft-hearted. Okay.
You are.
I get quite sentimental sometimes. I just listen to people's story. It's hard. I have to let you know. And I think it's the emotional part that really gets the most out of me. Also understanding that we're dealing with people's life. It's not just a story. It's not just something that we can just say something and being irresponsible to it. It's whatever we say, it's going to be counted on. Whatever we say may change people's life. So yeah, that's my take.
And what about people who don't particularly care? What about, and I'm sure you've had those frustrating cases, I know, because we represent the same people, who they don't care, or they don't take it seriously. And, we're carrying for this to work, it's like moving a table. We carry some legs, you carry some legs, the table moves.
That's right. They are difficult to deal with, I have to say. But first of all, understanding that this is something. Now that I'm going to quote for you, one thing that you always say: practicing law, it's a privilege.
Yes,
it's never right. Okay, so being able to do that, what goes behind means that you have spent years and years of hard work, years of preparation in mind to get you to being a lawyer. So that's something that you also have to take into consideration, that whether, your client doesn't reply your email, your client don't respond to you when there's, material being requested, whether there's something that you should just walk away and be like, that's his matter, that's her matter, I can't care anymore, okay? I can only give, I care what he has paid for or she has paid for. This is probably not what I would take. I probably take a bit more about it. It's just, what if I do an extra call? What if I do an extra email? What if, they just not with the right headspace at that moment? But if I missed it, if he doesn't come back to me, she doesn't come back to me, he may regret it. I may regret it. I want to be able to go home, sleep, and knowing that I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing what I vote for. And this is what matters to me.
No, I agree. I think you've nailed it. It's a privilege. And I think that if people knew how unglamorous the day-to-day is, and how the work itself is so much wrangling cats, there would be I think a greater deal of sympathy for the work of a criminal defense lawyer, because I think people just imagine we call our driver, because we all have drivers, the Ferrari pulls up, you jump in, you send some texts on the way to court, you get out, you put on your tie, you throw the file down, the judge smiles, case dismissed, you get a check straight away, Ferrari off to the Cayman Islands for a holiday. And if people understood, no, it's like, I've called this person 18 times because they don't get it and they're not taking it seriously, and then do I call them a 19th time because I just don't want them to lose their liberty or the right to see their children, or all the other stuff, people calling up with the very strange requests and strange headspaces. How do we help them?
This is what I have learned throughout the whole time, no matter from purely just in law or in life. I understand that every case has a sad story behind. Okay, there's always a reason why the things has happened and why the things has now before the court. Of course, our duty as a lawyer, it's not to sort of consultate them. It's not act as their therapy to help them with their mental issue. It's to help them with legal issue. Sorry, back to your question again. So you were saying,
I think. Well, I guess how do you reconcile the difficulty of becoming an actual lawyer from being a law student?
Well, I guess you have to understand. You really, really have to understand the reality. It's that take an example of myself. Okay, when I've been a law student, I used to have a lot of time doing my own stuff apart from just studying. I'm a cyclist. If I'm not studying, if I'm not doing anything else, I'll be on my bike.
Yeah.
Okay. Since becoming a lawyer, the time has been long gone. Okay. So I can't say there's no more writing, but there's barely any writings. There's barely any time that I say that I can enjoy myself on bike, but this is probably strange to me. I understand that my focus is now shift. I'm doing something. I'm not. I'm not disvaluing my bike riding, but this is something that far greater that I can do.
Yeah.
As what we say that practicing in law is actually privileged.
Yeah.
This is something cool.
Yeah.
This is something that growing up a kid, watching TV drama that gives you all this image, and now you're becoming the one before the court. This is cool.
It is, and I feel like sometimes I feel called to do this job. Like I feel like when people complain about their job, I'm like, yeah, I get it, but and don't take me wrong, there are really bad parts about this job, but as a general rule, this job is amazing. What we get to do is so satisfying. We get to help people and be there for them when we need them. If you could go back, well, actually you can. You'll be speaking to a lot of young listeners who are either starting their law journey. What would you tell someone who is in law school? And what would you tell someone who's in the first year of practice?
Well, I guess first, what I want to say to the law student, it's try to enjoy the most you can with academic law. Okay, this is probably the only time. I wouldn't say the only time, but this is the best time that you should utilize to get as law as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, because once you jump out the actual academic world, coming to the practical sort of practicing area, you will have to try really, really hard to find some time to squeeze to be able for you to really sit down and properly read some case law.
Yeah.
It's difficult, particularly to an area that you really, really like. Yeah.
What about for first year lawyers? For
first year lawyer, get yourself mentally ready. This is very important. Look after your mental health, look after your physical health, and you know that these two always go hand to hand.
Yes.
So nothing's more important than you look after yourself, because what I believe is if you can't look after yourself, it's hard to argue that someone can count on you. You have to be responsible to yourself first. Yes. You have to make sure that, I'm coming to work at 8, I'm finishing at 6, just for example, that within this time that I'm at my best. Without looking after your mental health, without looking after your physical health, I always said it's quite difficult to do that, because you'll be waking up, you're getting tired, you're not mentally ready for what's coming, you make mistake. I'm not saying that you won't make mistake. You will. I make a lot of mistake, and you know that.
Mistakes,
yes. It's just that you're coming, you're ready. If there's a mistake, of course you can go fix it, but you're not giving it out. Yeah.
Big thank you to Jim, our first special guest, for joining me on Cross-Examination with Jahan Kalantar. Please stay tuned for next week's episode when we are going to be talking to other special guests about amazing topics. Thank you, Jimbo.
Thank you.